I, this Zoom thing is amazing. I mean, you know, I'm the guy that when the pandemic first hit, I just knew it was going to be horrible. I don't know if anybody else is like me. You just know everything's going to be horrible the minute they mention it. It's just, it wasn't my idea, so it's going to be just miserable. And yeah, I'm not going to get to go to meetings, and I'm probably going to drink. And if I stay sober, I'll be miserable. And all my friends are going to drink, and we're all going to die. And, oh my God. And then Zoom comes along, and I look at it once. I'm like, you know, it's fake. It's not real AA. And I just don't want to know anything about it. And then, as Phil mentioned, I got hurt, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. And I got forced into Zoom, and what an amazing thing that this has turned out to be. We get to be with people right now. I mean, I'm reading in the notes and listening to the people announce where they are. And we're all over the world, for crying out loud. They even let a few Canadians in, for God's sakes. I mean, it's just, it's fantastic, right? And we're all getting to hang out together, and I get to travel to Tennessee and hang out with some of my usual suspects buddies, and I'll be home for dinner. I mean, it's right. It's just, it's nuts. I love it. I do. My name is Sheldon. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 17th of 1996. My sponsor is Charlie H. And because of the miracle of Zoom, my home group is the Hermosa Beach Men's Stag in Southern California. And it's a 2-second commute, and I love that. And, maybe I'll talk a little bit about how that came about too, but I'm grateful to be here. I'm a drunk. Been a drunk a long time. Love to drink. I was an uptight kid, and I didn't know why, and I didn't even really know there was anything wrong. Life just felt heavy to me, and it just did. It's kind of like I was talking about with the whole Zoom thing. It just looked like a pain in the ass, right? I mean, when I was born to parents that wanted to tell me what to do. And I don't like to be told what to do. And I'm before I can remember, they're telling me what to eat and where to go and who to hang out with and what time to go to bed. And it just seemed unreasonable. And then they shipped me off to school, and the damn teachers were the same way. They wanted to tell me what to read and when I could talk, and I got to raise my hand to go to the bathroom. And life is just a pain in the ass, right? And then you get a job, and you got a boss. I'm a boss, and I tell people what to do, and I don't want to be told what to do. I was only 9 when this kid Barry offered me a drink, and I didn't know what a drink was, but he was 11, which meant he was cool. And so if an 11-year-old tells a 9-year-old to do something, the 9-year-old does it. I was no different. And he said, drink this, and I drank that. And I tell you, I didn't know that I was suffering from an alcohol deficiency until the moment I consumed my first alcohol. But the minute that I took that drink, it felt like I could breathe for the first time. It lit me up. It let me go. It made it to where nothing mattered. And I wasn't good at it. I threw up the first time I drank, and I'm a puker. I'm not good at drinking. I'm a pant wetter, nose puker, hit on your mom, pee on the couch. The big book's got this great line. It says that sometimes we are dangerously and disgustingly antisocial. And I can see by some of you, you're dangerous. I'm not very dangerous, but I'm disgusting. I break things and spill things, and I say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person. And I got in a couple of fights in my life, but really what they were fall down and cries. You don't even have to hit me and I'm sniveling, right? I'm just that guy, but I'm a rent spender. I'm a car payment spender. I'm a paycheck blower. I'm a lend me whatever you got kind of drunk. And I didn't become a daily drinker at 9, but by the time I was 14, I sure was. And I was drinking something, taking something, smoking something every single day. I have alcoholism. It's the only disease I have. And if you're like me and under 80, you probably did some drugs too. I'm not a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm not going to spend much time at all talking about drugs. But if you're new and you did some, don't feel alienated here. Most of us did. What we share, though, is a disease of alcoholism that I have treated with everything, primarily alcohol, but I'll treat it with anything that gives me a sense of freedom and ease and comfort. And I'm a pig. And at 14, I'm doing everything every day. And at 16, in England, I grew up in England. And in England, you graduate high school at 16. And when I graduated high school, I went down to the government office and I signed on the welfare and got government subsidized apartment and food stamps and whatever they had to offer. And I just started to drink and do drugs on the government dime. And it was a mess. I had a roommate and we had parties every night. And I was having a great time. But my dad, who had moved to California, which is a long story, but how I ended up in the States, my dad came to visit me. And he came after a particularly big weekend that we'd been partying, and in the living room, in the middle of the room, there was a pile of 50 or 60 empty beer cans just all seeping and dripping on the carpet, and the place smelled of urine. And I'm a good little Jewish boy from the right side of the tracks, and he took one look at me and he said, "If I'll give you one chance, if you move to Southern California, I'll send you to college and we'll change your life and fix you up." And I didn't know much about California other than palm trees, beaches, and pretty girls. I didn't even know if people drank there, but I was willing to give it a shot. And I got in the plane and I moved to California, and it turned out they drink out there. And I just continued doing what I was doing. I found this little rock and roll band called the Grateful Dead, and I couldn't shake them, man. Everywhere I went, there they were. And I had a great time. I remember one particular concert. I'm at Shoreline Amphitheater. I'm at the way back, and it's a typical San Francisco fall day. It's cold and it's foggy and it's not raining, but it's damp and there's lightning in the background. And Bobby Weir yells out, "It looks like rain," and I'm on 4 hits of window pane, and I'm having a spiritual experience, the likes of which no 12-step call has ever given me, boy. I mean, I'm having a blast. This is in like 1989 when shows were still cool, and it was a great time, man. It was a great time. I got lucky. There was an earthquake in San Francisco, and to skip way forwards in the story, because of that earthquake, I got a job as the national spokesperson for Kenwood Appliances. And I was 19, and I was the youngest executive Kenwood had, and I was on QVC and the Home Shopping Network and Home Shopping Network Canada, and I had infomercials that ran. And it was a great job for a drunk because I would work 4 days every 6 weeks. I would fly to a live studio and do a performance, get paid, and go home. And it was actually better than that. I would fly to like Florida or Westchester, Pennsylvania, or Toronto, and in a 4-day period, I would do 4 or 5 3-minute sections on TV and get paid a lot of money. And the only reason I tell you that is because I drank myself out of that job. I couldn't show up for 3 minutes 5 times over a 4-day period, and they fired me from that job. And when they fired me, I knew why. We always know why, right? And it's never drinking. I knew they fired me because there was a guy, Bernard, and Bernard was anti-Semitic and he didn't like Jews, and he was trying to find a way to get rid of me. What they said, though, in the exit interview is they thought it was inappropriate to have an alcoholic crack addict as their national spokesperson, which I thought was an overreaction to the situation. But it was their world, and they fired me. And I had a good resume. I was able to get another couple of good jobs in a row. But by the time I was 23 years old, only job I could get was selling cars. And I'd sold cars before, and I didn't want to be a car salesman. I'd been the national spokesperson, head economist for Kenwood Appliances, and I didn't want to go back to that job, but I did, and I couldn't keep one. You know what happened is I'd have a good month, and a good month is a killer for a guy like me because then I don't show up next month, and I'd keep jobs for 30, 60, 90 days, and I'd bounce around from job to job, and I'm 25 years old now, and I can't pay the rent. My dad won't let me in his house. I've stole from him too many times. My mom's heard the sob story and sent me money too many times, and she joined Al-Anon, and that ended that money train. And I stole from the guy that was letting me sleep at his house, and he kicked me out, and I had nowhere to go. I'm 25 years old, and I'd had a friend that had gotten sober, and I thought I'd call AA. I met a guy at a meeting, and that guy took me from there to a detox. He asked me, he said, do you want to be sober? And I think about that, and I thought about that then. I had been forced into states of abstinence before, running out of money or getting in trouble. And I had been sober for days at a time, and I didn't like it. I felt empty, lonely, guilty, ashamed, afraid, uncomfortable. All I could think about was the next drink, on edge. I didn't want to be sober. But here's this guy asking me if I want to be sober, and I got nowhere else to go. I don't homeless well, and I don't know what my next move is. And he says, if you want to be sober, I can take you to this place called Detox where you can stay for a week and dry out. And from there, we'll get you in a halfway house. And you'll be able to stay there for a little bit and get your life back together. And I don't know if I wanted to be sober, but I wanted somewhere to sleep. So I lied to him, and I said, yeah, I want to be sober. And he took me to Detox. And my journey began there. I stayed there 7 days, and I got some hope. There were people there talking about what it felt like for me drinking and sober, and I had some identification. And for me, what drinking feels like is incredibly exciting at the beginning. I always feel like it's a great idea. I always think it's going to be really cool, and I just got to get some relief and get my buzz on, and it's going to be a party. And I imagine there'll be girls and parties and good times. And as I drink through my paycheck and burn through what money I have and embarrass myself and get ashamed and get angry and get sad and cry and end up by myself in my room one more time, imagining that it was going to be different than it was, and it wasn't, and it was always the same, and so broken, and then coming to the next morning broken, hungover, and depressed and alone, so alone, and just desperately wanting my life to change, but not knowing how to change it. And with my head running and telling me I'm a piece of garbage and I'm always going to be a piece of garbage, and my dad's no good and my mom's no good and the family's no good, and all this pressure and all this weight on me, and feeling like an outsider and feeling like a stranger and feeling just so like on the wrong side of life. And then trying to be sober and wanting to be sober, not wanting to do it again. But the longer I'm sober, the more empty I feel, the more alone I feel. And my head starts running, saying, have a drink, have a drink. You can have a drink. Why not have a drink? Take a drink, for crying out loud. You deserve it. You've been sober now for a long time. You've been sober for what? 4, 5, 10 days. I mean, Jesus, what do they expect of you? Why are you trying anyway? You've tried before. You're not going to make it. You're going to get drunk again. You always get drunk again. Why prolong the agony? Why stay in pain another day when you know you're going to drink again anyway? Why not drink? And I drink. And I'm sitting in this detox center, and these guys are talking my language, and I'm thinking, maybe there's hope here. And I get out of there, and I go to this halfway house, and I don't know, man. I stayed sober about 25, 26 days. And the halfway house had rules, and we know I don't like rules. They want me home at a certain time. They want me to do a chore. They want me to go to the house meetings. I'm not living with other national spokespeople. I'm with plumbers and carpenters and fast food workers, for God's sakes. I haven't been a national spokesperson for a long time, but my ego still thinks I am one, and I think I'm better than everybody. And the judgment machine is rah, 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 rah. And I don't mean to get drunk. You know what it is? I got an edge on. I just do. I can feel it. I know it's not, I get it. It's not really you, it's me. And I just need to find a way to get a little relief. I just need a way to, whew. And I know how to do that. I learned it at 9 years old. I just take a couple of drinks. I'm not going to get drunk. I'm not going to burn my life to the ground. I am not. I'm not going to. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have one, maybe two, three at the most, no more than four. Just there's an edge on and I got to get the edge off. And that's all I'm going to do. And it was a good plan if you weren't an alcoholic. But I went out and I had a couple of drinks and a couple of drinks, wanted a couple more, and a couple more led to another night of me losing everything, paycheck, job, place to live. I'm done again. And what happened next is 3 years of me getting sober to get loaded, to get sober to get loaded. I never left AA. I was in a couple of meetings every week at minimum. I was in a couple of meetings every day at most. I was an AA hanger-on that kept getting drunk. I didn't want to get drunk. I didn't want to stay sober. I couldn't get drunk and I couldn't stay sober. And I didn't know what to do. And I was in the proverbial trap you can't spring. I get sober for a day or two or three, and then I drink a week, and then I drink. I got 30 days twice, and I got 60 days once, and I kept drinking again. I moved to Las Vegas, to make a long story short, to open a beef jerky factory, which, if you knew what my life was like, I couldn't buy a bag of beef jerky, let alone open a factory. But that was the story I told myself and my friends when I packed my 63 Volkswagen in 96 to drive to Vegas to open the beef jerky factory. I got here in January and I drank till July. And in July of 96, I ended at a place called the Kiss Club, more dead than alive. I was so lonely, so broken, so afraid, so cut off. I couldn't drink anymore. It just, the thought of it just, I thought I was going to just be this guy that lingered for the rest of his life in the most pathetic way, and I couldn't face it. And I couldn't stay sober. I tried. I wanted to die and I couldn't kill myself. And that's how I came to you. In my second or third meeting, there was a guy that shared that was to become my first sponsor, would be my sponsor for the first 20 years, the man that saved my life. And he talked about those emotions. He talked about feeling that way. But he did it in a manner in which I knew he didn't feel that way anymore. And I was intrigued and I asked him for help. And he told me that he would be my sponsor, and he started me on a journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. The next day, he had me meet him at a detox meeting, not as a client, but as a panel member. And I've been going to detoxes and treatment centers and jails and prisons and halfway houses ever since. 2 days later, he had me meet him at a book study. And I've been going to book studies and literature meetings and weekend workshops ever since. And very quickly, he got me on the process of the steps out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Step one was easy. You can't live in my shoes for the last 4 or 5 years before I got sober and not know that it would be a bad idea for me to drink. I could kid myself in the early days of trying to get sober, but by the time it was time for me to get sober, it was clear if I could find a way not to drink, that would be helpful. Guys like me shouldn't drink. He asked me about unmanageability. I got confused for a number of years when I would talk to guys about unmanageability. I would try and talk to newcomers about step 6, unmanageable life sober. But that's not a step 1 question. That's a step 6 question. He talked to me about my unmanageable life drinking. And he asked me silly questions like, drink when you don't want to. When you drink, do you drink more than you intend to? When you drink, do you lose jobs? When you drink, do you fight with family members? When you drink, do you get arrested? When you drink, is your life on purpose? Regardless of your situation when you got sober, the chances are the decisions were being made for you, by you, and of you that were not the choices you'd want to make. And he pointed out that if your life is not of your choosing, it is unmanageable by nature. I could buy step one. Step two is tricky because I don't believe in God. And I kind of hope that there'd be another solution. It's a little disappointing, right? I mean, you're a tough guy alcoholic, you come to Alcoholics Anonymous where the other tough guys are, and then they tell you that the answer is God. I'm right out of the big book, you know, my face falls when you mention God. There's got to be something cooler than that. Kept me out for a long time. And I told him, I said, I can't do step two and I can't do step three because I just don't believe in God. And he said something weird. He said, you don't have to believe in God to do step two or step three, which I thought was a little strange. And he challenged me to do something. He said, go talk to the other members of the group and ask them why they're sober. I already know the answer. It's almost like they give it out on a little card. If anybody asks you why you're sober, tell them, I'm sober today by the grace of God that I found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sober today because the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous have led me to a power greater than myself that allows me to stay sober one day at a time. I'd like to thank God for AA, and I'd like to thank AA for God. Now, if you're new and you ask me why I'm sober, I want you to know, all honesty, I'm sober today because of a power greater than myself that I found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. By the glory and the greatness of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was introduced to a power greater than myself. And if I ever get to meet God, I will say to him, Pops, pretty girls and sunsets were pretty cool. But those 12 steps, baby, I want to thank you for those because that created a life in my short span on the earth beyond my wildest dreams. But I go back to him and I tell him, because of God. And he says to me, if they're sober because of God, and you could find God in step 2 or 3, why the hell would you do step 4? I mean, go to any open discussion meeting and say, I want to talk about step 4. They'll all tell you it sucks. Nobody likes doing 4. 5? Are you kidding me? I didn't spend a lot of time on the street, but the time I did spend on the street, I learned this. Deny, deny, deny. And now you want me to put it in paper, write that stuff down. Are you kidding? It's like the good cop in the first 48. You know, if you write it down and confess, you'll feel better. Yeah, I'll feel better 25 to life. I ain't writing nothing down. 6 and 7, nobody understands 6 and 7. Wilson only wrote 2 paragraphs in the big book. They're the flyover steps. 8 and 9 are incredibly expensive. I ain't doing them. 10 and 11, so confusing. Half the people on the Zoom tonight, 340 odd people, half of them think they're doing step 10 when they're really doing step 11. The other half are going, yeah, that's right. Because we're spiritually arrogant and we think that bullshit matters. Step 12 is a real pain in the ass. Newcomers are annoying and I got shows to binge watch. Seriously, if I could find God in 2 or 3, why the hell would I do the rest of the program? He said to me, you don't have to believe in God to do step 2. And he showed me in the book the actual working part of step 2. A lot of great conversation. Some sponsors have you write a lot of stuff. I want to tell you, if anything I say contradicts your sponsor, he's right, not me. I'm the knucklehead on Zoom. He's the guy that's trying to help you save your own life. But the working part of step 2 asks a question. It says, we ask the new man one simple question. Do you now believe, or are you even willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? Do I now believe? No. But that's okay. Because see, there's an or. If you had to believe in God to do step 2, there'd be no or. It would be, well, keep praying or drinking till you do, because there's no or. But there's an or. Do you now believe, or are you even willing to believe in a power? What does that mean? Even willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, there might be a God. Probably not. I mean, it's unlikely, right? I don't believe in it. First of all, wasn't my idea. Secondly, there's probably some rules. I'm not in for any of that crap. Gun to the head, there is no God. But am I willing to believe that there may be, on some weird, bizarre, like, one in a big, maybe there might be a God if my life depended on it. Am I willing to believe possibly? Unlikely, but possibly. Yes, I am willing to believe that maybe, possibly, maybe there might be a God. Then it says, as soon as a man could say he does believe, which I didn't, or is even willing to believe, which reticently I suppose I am, we emphatically ensure him he's on his way. What does that mean? Emphatically. Done, baby. Step 2, in the bag. If you're stuck on step 2, we just did it together. Let's move on. What do we do now? Say the prayer. Say the goddamn prayer. If I don't believe in God, and I say a third step prayer, won't that make me a hypocrite? Yes. You have a list of problems, Sheldon, that we can organize in levels of severity of those that are going to hurt you the most. Being a hypocrite is one of them, but it is so far down the list, we can worry about it later. Then what do? Here's what you do. You take the scientific approach to Alcoholics Anonymous, as Shoemaker talks about in AA Comes of Age. What does that mean? It means that you take the actions of a man that believes in God even though you don't. You pretend that God exists and you act accordingly. You're willing to do that. Even though you don't really believe in God, if you and I get together and we sit and talk about what a man that believes in God would do, are you willing to take that action whether it feels right or not? Are you willing to do that? Yeah, I'm willing to do that. And that was the journey that my sponsor and I began. And I would call him with a problem. And I would say, man, I don't know what to do here. And he would say, well, let me ask you, Sheldon, what would a guy that believed in God do? Not you, but a real good, high-quality member of Alcoholics Anonymous with a God in his life. What would he do? Not you, Sheldon, but, someone that's got a God. And you always know. We know what spiritual principles are. Honesty, kindness, love, tolerance, compassion, patience, put myself second, put the other person first. I always know what the answer is. I just don't want to do it. I don't like rules. I don't want to be told what to do. But live as if there were a God. Live as if there were a power behind you greater than any problem in front of you. And write your 4th step. He told me step 3 was really a contract to do 4 through 9. And I wrote my inventory. And my inventory was just like yours. Mom and dad and brothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends and spouses and bosses and just about everybody that had any pathetic little contact with me in my absurd little life. And I was mad at all of them because they didn't love me enough or treat me right, or they hurt me somehow, or they did something to me that I did to somebody. You ever notice on your inventory, if you've done one, that you're mad at person number 3 for doing to you what you did to person number 6? I mean, we're just a mess, aren't we? We're just a disaster. I shared my 5th step with my sponsor, and we laughed and we cried and we cried and we laughed. And I had an experience in my 5th step that I hope you have with yours, where I came out the other side, knowing that I was just like you, knowing that you were just like me, knowing that I could join the human race, that I no longer, as the 12 and 12 said, have to bury myself under the pile, climb to the top of it, that I can just be one of you. And I know if you haven't done the inventory, you don't know that's how that works, but it does, and you got to do it. You can't live by my experience. There is no vicarious experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. You have to have your own. And sometimes you got to do it more than once. I had to inventory my dad many times. I was 14, 15 years sober before my head popped out my butt with my dad. But guess what I was? 14, 15 years sober from continuous work and trying and doing inventory in trying to figure that out. 6 and 7, at my first brush with 6 and 7, they were the flyover steps. How do you come out of a fifth step and not think you're willing to have God remove your defects? They've ruined your life. So yes, the answer is I'm willing. 7, I say the prayer. Okay, I should be wonderful now. 8 and 9, I didn't want to give anybody any of my money. And some old timers said they don't want your money, which was a relief. And then he said they just want their money back, which took away the relief. Because I was making newcomer money. And what I owed divided by newcomer money equaled a really crap life and 30 years to pay it back. I told that to an old timer. He said, you know what you'll have when you're done? 30 years. But I didn't make newcomer money for long. And the amends got paid much, much faster. I paid all my amends except one in the first 5 years. It took me 17 years to become willing to make the last one. But I made the last one. I was told I don't have to make any amend I'm not willing to make. I just have to be willing to ask God to let me be willing. And that was my journey. 10 and 11 are the lifeblood of Alcoholics Anonymous for me. And this isn't a 10 and 11 study. And I'm not going to explain why it's not step 10. It's really step 11 when you go to sleep at night. You got a book, read it, figure it out. It does actually say, what about step 11? And then talk about going to bed at night. Maybe it's a misprint. Who cares? It doesn't matter, right? What we call this stuff isn't important. What's important is that page 13, Bill Wilson takes the steps. He takes them all wrong. So, I used to be maybe some of you still are. I was an I daughter, right? I've got the good dope. If you don't do AA my way, it's crap AA and you're gonna die. You have to do the same number of columns of me and you need commas and put the book up on the shelf. Can't take it off the shelf if you don't put it on the shelf. I mean, I was a lunatic, right? And then I realized that AA is this spiritual thing where the mystery is in the gaps and the spaces. And Bill Wilson did the steps wrong on page 13. And it's experiential and it's beautiful, and it's spiritual and it's magical. But 10 and 11, the combination of inventory, prayer, and meditation, the combination of pausing when agitated, the combination of continuing to look at one thing, which is that I still make the same mistakes today that I made 24 years ago. Sometimes less often, sometimes to a lesser degree, but that I am still human, drives me back into step 6. In fact, they say that Bill Wilson only wrote a couple of paragraphs on 6 and 7. I would say Bill Wilson wrote an entire book about 6 and 7. There was nothing else to say when he wrote the narrative in the big book. Step 1, I admit I'm powerless and I better find a way to be willing to let God in my life. Step 2, God is the God I will let in my life. Step 3, I'm going to make a decision to take all the action I can to let God in my life. Step 4 and 5, I'm going to look for the things that have blocked me from letting God in my life. Step 6 and 7, Alcoholics Anonymous. Step 8 and 9, I'm going to clean up the mess from not letting God in my life. 10 and 11, I'm going to continue to look for the blockages, remove them, and try and get closer to that God in my life. Step 12, I'm going to find a new guy whose hand I can put in the hand of God and teach him how to do 6 and 7. It is the center of my sobriety. It is the core of my serenity. You want to see me nuts? You'll see me nuts when I'm not willing to have God remove my defects of character and when I can't muster the humility to ask him to come into my life and direct me to be closer to him. It's all we have. It is the center point and the fulcrum point. It is the balance upon which the scale of sobriety is measured. And I'm so bad at it. 24 years sober, and I still want to be in charge. And I still can get up in the morning and be mad at my girl because she used the last piece of creamer, or there's no hot water, or my favorite show got canceled, or there's traffic. Oh, the traffic, right? the soberest man. I want to see the soberest member of AA driving traffic. I'll see how sober you are, right? I mean, I got a friend of mine, I call him sometimes, and he's not sober as long as me, but his sponsor tells him this, so he'll tell me, he'll go, Sheldon, only drive the car you're in. If I could only drive the car I was in, I'd be the soberest guy in the room. But I can't. I got to drive every car on the gosh darn road. It's just the way I'm wired, right? How do I get closer to God? I almost get a little bit mad talking about this. And I tell you why. Because God is God. And I'm one of his kids. And I got a kid. My kid's 19 years old. If my kid needed something that would be good for him to have a better life, I would try and give it to him. You guys told me when I was new, you want to imagine God? Imagine God as a father and you're his kid. And he just loves you just like that. Well, God's God. God could remove all my defects of character. Listen, I don't care what your idea of God is. Mine's pretty simple. I don't know his name or his favorite day of the week or his birthday or nothing. Some of you guys do. You even know what time he wants to talk to you, what songs he wants you to sing. I don't have a clue, for crying out loud. I ain't that close to the guy. But I know he's God. And I know that if God wanted to take away all my defects of character, he could. And I'm a little pissed, to be honest, that he doesn't. Because I struggle with them. They hurt me. Why doesn't he? I tell you why he doesn't. It's the greatest gift he gives me. Because if I didn't struggle, if I really was the guy in between the prayers at the AA meeting that tells everybody, I'm just grateful for everything. If I really was that guy, if I really lived the way I pretend to between the prayers, which I guess some of you look holy enough to where you do, but most of us don't. Some of you, though, I can tell. You're glowing through Zoom. I can sense it. But most of us don't really live like that, right? And if God let me live like that, I don't know about you, but here's how I'm wired. I'd stop talking to him because I wouldn't need him anymore. It is the struggle and the strife and the pain of 7, 6, 7, 10, 11 that drives me back to him. The greatest place where I am the most comfortable, the most happy, and the most peaceful after inventory and prayer and meditation, finding my conscious contact with God. I am not driven there by virtue. I am driven there by struggle. By struggle. It is many times, this is so screwed up, but it's just the truth. When things are going good, I don't do the freaking morning meditation. I forget. If I do the inventory, it goes like this. You know? Oh, that was pretty good today. Okay, let's turn on Netflix. Right? It is in the moments of crises that I am driven by desperation to find God. And he loves me so much that he will allow me like a butterfly to struggle against the cocoon. Or like a moth to struggle against the cocoon. I'm saying this totally wrong. See how screwed up I am? Struggle like the caterpillar against the cocoon so I can emerge a butterfly. And it is in the struggle, the repeated struggle. You know, sometimes I have shared in the past, I listen to old tapes of me and I think I'm so stupid, where I will share like everything, you know, I don't do this anymore, but 3 years ago, I used to behave like this. Before I was 10 years sober, blah, blah, blah. What, are you kidding? Some of this stuff I did yesterday, some of it I have a plan to do tomorrow, right? Because I'm human, perfectly human, insanely human, crazy human, right? But human, trying to deal with this journey of life and connect to God and connect to you and be spiritually whole and find a way to live. God made us this way, not to be ashamed of, but to celebrate, to strive to be better, to strive not to hurt people, to try not to be so selfish, to try not to be so inconsiderate, to try to serve more. Oh, to serve more. But I am driven by all of my humanness. And I don't think God did that by mistake. I think that he thinks that my struggle will bring me closer to him, and he loves me. And he wants me by his side, not in a fake, not in an empty way, but in a desperately grateful way. And my character defects drive me to do that. And they drive me to love you. Wilson says we're connected by our errors, not our virtue. And it is true. It is true. The reason that I never fit in any other spiritual group I tried to fit in is because I can't pretend to be that pure for that long. And I don't even know if those people want me to pretend to be pure. I don't think they do. They love God and they get it. I just feel like they do because I'm Mr. Judgment, right? So I need to go to a spiritual place where people fart and swear during the service. And that's what you are to me. You're the farting, swearing, spiritual giants of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I love you. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I got it 5 minutes or so. And this has been an interesting year for me. It's been an interesting year for all of us, right? I have my own small business, and it was struggling before the madness happened. And I thought I was facing bankruptcy for sure. And, then the pandemic hit, and it didn't make it any better. We got closed down for a while, and day by day, minute by minute. And in April, I had an undiagnosed, undiscovered hole in my heart that allowed a blood clot that caused a stroke. Thankfully, no real symptoms from the stroke. But the stroke caused a seizure, and in the seizure, I broke my right arm in 4 places, and I burst my L4 vertebrae, no disc and no vertebrae to speak of left. I was in the hospital for several months. I didn't know if I was going to ever be able to walk again. The doctors weren't sure. They didn't know what caused the stroke. It took them 3 months to find the hole in the heart and another couple of months to fix that. And I know my business is going to close, and I'm so depressed. And I'm laying in prayer and meditation. And all of a sudden, I've been sober 24 years. I've had 100 spiritual experiences, but I've had 4 or 5 I could see, 4 or 5 I could smell and taste. And if you're lucky, you've had a couple of them yourself, real, tangible, strange to describe spiritual experiences. I had one. I'm laying in my bed, and all of a sudden I feel this warmth come up my feet and over my knees. And it felt comfortable and beautiful. And it had a color. That's bizarre, right? It was blue, indigo blue. And it tasted indigo blue. And I just knew something. I just felt comfortable. I'd had it before. I'd had it when I was really new one time. I didn't know what it was. I'd had it when we lost our second. We were pregnant. I heard 4 heartbeats. We have 1 son. The second time there was no heartbeat, I had that feeling. It was peace, and it was comfort. And I'm trying to explain to a friend of mine this experience that I had. And he wanted a Hallmark card sentence. He was a newer guy, and he wanted something he could take with him. And I tell you what I came up with to explain to him how that experience felt. It felt like AA works. AA works. AA works in a pandemic. It works when you're going to lose your business. It works when there's no heartbeat. It works during divorce. It works during business failure. It works during fights with your business partner. It works during health issues in your family. It works when your dad dies. All of these things have happened to me. AA works. And what does that mean when you say AA works? It means that because of AA, I know that God is real. That God is real. I don't mean real in the sense that you tell the new guy when you say, you better go home and pray about that, and you think he's completely screwed. But I mean that AA really works in a real and tangible way. AA works and God is real, and there is a power here greater than me that is behind me, helping me face any problem in front of me. I was in Florida at Fort Lauderdale one year, and there were sand dunes on the beach. And the tide was out. And the ocean was behind the sand dunes. You couldn't see it. It looked like there was nothing but sand. I never imagined somebody pulled the plug on the Atlantic Ocean and the ocean was gone. I knew the ocean would come back. And the ocean is an amazing analogy for my spiritual connectedness. Sometimes the tide is in. Sometimes I'm swimming in the feeling of God's love. Sometimes the tide is at mid-thigh and God is with me and I can feel his warmth, but I can still feel the cool wind of life on my chest and on my face. Sometimes it kisses only my toes, and sometimes I'm stood alone in the sand. But even stood alone in the sand, I never imagined they pulled the plug and the ocean will not come back. God loves me. God loves you. Alcoholics Anonymous works. Listen, when I do these things, I hope a couple of things. I hope I entertain most of you. I hope I inspire a couple of you, and I hope I only piss off one or two of you. If I entertained you, I'm glad. If I annoyed you, call your sponsor. If I inspired you and you want to talk, my name is next to my phone number is next to my name for a reason. Text is a great way to begin communication so we can plan times in our life when we're both free. I'd love to talk to anyone about Alcoholics Anonymous at any time. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for my life.